In the world, there are tales of cruel mothers-in-law and sisters-in-law who relentlessly torment their daughters-in-law. But the opposite can happen too. Let me tell you about how a domineering daughter-in-law tore our family apart and then how we rebuilt it. My name is Sarah, I'm 25. Just recently, I got married to Mike, who is 3 years my senior, through a workplace romance, and I'm at the peak of happiness. When it was time to leave the home I had lived in for many years, my grandmother said, "We will miss you too. But Sarah, live happily. Remember, you can always come back if anything happens," as she sent me off. My parents got divorced when I was in middle school and my brother Adam was in high school. It wasn't an age where we absolutely needed a mother, and both Adam and I facing entrance exams. We ended up living with our father for economic reasons. Our paternal grandmother took care of things like preparing meals and cleaning for us. The divorce was caused by my father's infidelity. Grandmother often said, "I truly regret what happened to your mother. My son isn't a bad person, but he has always been bad with women, or rather, he's too weak-willed to properly refuse temptations. To us siblings, he was a kind and good father, but marital and romantic relationships are a different matter, I suppose." Grandmother was a gentle and hard-working person. I've never seen her rest. She would always start cleaning some small corner or do her knitting whenever she had a moment. Grandmother knitted many sweaters and scarves for my brother and me. Even though my parents were divorced, I met with my mother quite often for meals or shopping, so I never felt particularly lonely. I think my mother really loved my father. Even after they separated, she often worried about my father. That's probably why she couldn't forgive his infidelity. I remember my mother crying throughout the funeral when my father suddenly passed away from a stroke 6 years ago. When my father died, my mother was already remarried, so living with her wasn't an option for us. Moreover, we couldn't leave our grandmother alone in such a big house, and my brother had the same opinion. Mother said she would fully support us if anything happened. And then, when I got married and left the house, it ended up being just my grandmother and Adam living in the old, large house. It's only a 15-minute drive from our new place, so I'll come to visit often because I want to eat Grandma's cooking, I said. I truly thought so and intended to do just that, but a year after I got married, Adam got married too. That was the beginning of everything. My 29-year-old brother got a woman 4 years his senior pregnant. I was surprised by what Emily, who was about to become my sister-in-law, said when we first met. We decided to get married because I got pregnant. I never really wanted to get married. As they're both old enough to know better, I thought that both are responsible. If she didn't want to get married, she should have taken precautions. I thought to myself, but I didn't say it out loud. Frankly, my impression of my brother's wife was bad. She might have been considered beautiful, but I thought her unpleasant personality was apparent. Despite claiming she didn't want to get married, the wedding and reception were quite lavish. I think my brother must have stretched himself thin. And there must have been some financial help from our grandmother. Adam, perhaps taking after our father, was kind-hearted or, to put it less kindly, weak-willed. It was clear he was already under his older wife's thumb. The first time I visited my grandmother's house after Adam's marriage, my sister-in-law told me, "You're married now, aren't you? You shouldn't come back here so often. Be mindful," she said in a condescending tone right off the bat. Though it irked me to do exactly what my sister-in-law wanted, I gradually found myself visiting Grandma's house less often. When the baby was born, I did go to give a gift, but I couldn't help but notice how my grandmother looked. She seemed much thinner than before. "Grandma, are you okay? You seem to have lost some weight. Are you not feeling well?" I asked grandmother. She smiled and said, "I'm fine. At my age, being too heavy is hard on the knees. Losing a bit of weight is just right." She insists she's not in poor health, but Grandma will be turning 77 next month. As someone who's always been particularly close to her, I can't help but worry. "Grandma, it's your 77th birthday next month, isn't it? We should celebrate," I said, but she demurred, as always, "No, dear. It's not necessary. We've just welcomed a great-grandchild. Then how about we celebrate the baby's arrival and your 77th birthday together?" I suggested, thinking it was a great idea. But Grandma stubbornly refused, insisting, "Really, dear, I don't need any celebration. Just focus on the baby." I tried discussing it directly with my brother and his wife, but his wife dismissed the idea outright. Mixing the celebration of an old person, whose days are limited, with that of a newborn is just bad luck. Besides, if she says she doesn't want it, why force it, she retorted. What's with her? Taking advantage of Grandma's kindness and saying whatever she pleases. To bring up, she's having a little time to spare like that. I vented my frustration to my husband in anger. Calm down, Sarah. It's understandable you're upset, but if Grandma needs help, we'll be there for her. I'll support you. My husband reassured me, which was comforting, but I've never seen Grandma show any sign of weakness. That's why I'm worried. The following year, I became pregnant. When I was in my stable period and went to tell Grandma, my sister-in-law said to me, "Childbirth is really tough, you know. It's incredibly painful and difficult. Are you sure you're up for it, Sarah?" She said in a condescending as if imparting some exclusive knowledge. I was extremely frustrated. I was also bothered by how my brother's nearly 2-year-old child was so attached to Grandma. Even when his mother called for her, she would hide behind Grandma, not wanting to go to her. "Oh, please. She's completely charmed the great-grandchild." My sister-in-law complained unpleasantly. What an outrageous thing to say. I knew everything from my brother had told me. After giving birth, my sister-in-law took a 2-month break before returning to her full-time job. During those 2 months of maternity leave, it seemed she left most of the housework and childcare to Grandma. I couldn't believe she would offload her child onto Grandma, despite my brother's repeated protests. Isn't it because you've left the childcare entirely to Grandma that the child is so attached to her? It's only natural for the child to become fond of the person who's always there taking care of them. I pointed out, "Well, you see, I never wanted a child or even to get married in the first place. I have no intention of quitting my job, as I'm needed at work." "You might not understand," she retorted, always managing to say something infuriating. She must be under some witch's curse. If she accidentally speaks a kind word, the curse will make her face swell to double its size. That's the only way I can make sense of it. As I was leaving, the lady from the house across the street called out to me. She's been a family friend since I was a child, a bit of a chatterbox, but a genuinely caring and sociable person. She told me that when she and some other neighbors greeted my sister-in-law, who was back at work shortly after childbirth. "With you're already back at work even though your baby's just been born? Are you all right?" My sister-in-law claimed she had been ousted to work and her daughter taken by Grandma. Of course, I denied it all, and the lady, having known Grandma even longer than I have, didn't believe a word of my sister-in-law's story. She must have been worried enough about it to bring it up with me. If we leave my sister-in-law unchecked, there's no telling what kind of lies she might spread around the neighborhood. I was thinking it was high time to have a serious talk with my brother about her when suddenly, Grandma collapsed. She fell while weeding the garden and was taken to the hospital by ambulance. It happened on a sunny day in June. It was the lady from across the street who called the ambulance. They couldn't reach my sister-in-law, and my brother was tied up in a meeting, so they contacted me. Fortunately, it was just a mild case of heat stroke. By the time I arrived, Grandma had regained consciousness. "Grandma, are you okay?" I asked. But instead of worrying about herself, she was concerned about her great-grandchild. "Oh, Sarah. Is the little one all right? She should be napping in the room where she can be seen from the garden. It would be so sad if she woke up and found herself alone." It seems Grandma had been keeping an eye on her great-grandchild napping while she was weeding. "You should let Adam do the weeding, Grandma. You mustn't overexert yourself. Just go quickly and check on the house. If she wakes up crying, give her the bunny toy. That usually stops her tears," she urged me. Considering her age, Grandma was admitted to the hospital for a day just to be safe. I hurried over to Grandma's house and found my niece still sound asleep in a room facing the garden. When I brought my niece back to the hospital, Grandma was asleep. Seeing Grandma, my niece, who seemed a bit scared by the hospital atmosphere, toddled over and asked, Grandma, are you okay? Does it hurt?" Grandma woke up and gently stroked her head. Oh, good. I'm fine, dear. Sorry, Sarah, for making you worry, especially with the baby on the way. Even at such a time, Grandma was worried about my niece and me. Hey, Grandma. I heard from the lady across the street that Emily's been telling the neighbors you took her daughter away and forced her to work. Aren't you angry? Being exploited and lied about by someone like her makes me so mad. I was trying to keep my voice down in the hospital room, but I couldn't stop my tears. Grandma silently stroked my head. And then she whispered, yes. I think I want to leave that house. It was the first time I'd ever heard Grandma express such vulnerability. That's right, Grandma. You don't have to work for Emily. Come live with us. I truly meant it. But Grandma said, thank you, Sarah. But I can't. What would happen to this little one if I wasn't there? She stroked the head of her bewildered great-granddaughter lying beside her bed. She has her parents. They'll figure something out. Just then, my brother, the father in question, left work early and arrived. Grandma, are you okay? I told you I would take care of the weeding next time I was off, he said. From what my brother said, it seemed like his wife had commanded Grandma to do the weeding. How far was she planning to exploit Grandma? Come on, Adam. Do something about her. At this rate, Grandma's going to break down. And why did you even marry her in the first place? I knew it was futile to say, but I couldn't help it. According to Adam, he hadn't realized she was so selfish when they were dating. I've heard of husbands changing after marriage, but it seems wives can do the same. I always thought that wives grow more assertive over the years. But there are people like my sister-in-law too. What Adam told me was beyond my imagination. Grandma was treated almost like a slave by my sister-in-law. Adam said he had scolded and argued with her, but she didn't care, and all he could do was help Grandma as much as possible. It's embarrassing to admit, but Adam, like our father and Grandma, is too kind-hearted. I was determined not to let Grandma return to that house. The dream I had that night was the worst. My brother, Grandma, and I were desperately rowing a boat under a violently rocking ship. Whenever we rested our hands, a whip would come flying. The one wielding the whip was my sister-in-law. I decided to have Grandma come to my place for an emergency evacuation when she was discharged the next day. It was the weekend, and both Adam and Emily had the day off. They would manage without Grandma. I wanted Grandma to rest and to think about what to do next. Adam seemed resolved, saying, I love my daughter, but I think this marriage was a mistake. I'll take responsibility. He took his daughter and left. When Grandma set foot in my 2-bedroom apartment upon discharge, she exclaimed, oh my, it's quite cozy, isn't it? Cleaning will be easy here. Which made me laugh. She had lived in that large, old house for so many years. So her reaction was understandable. When I first moved out and started living here, I was also surprised by how small it was. Thanks to that, my husband teased me for a while, calling me a princess. Despite my insistence on resting, Grandma kept busy, cleaning around and cooking for us. While we were relaxing with coffee after dinner, my brother called. He said his daughter was throwing a tantrum and refusing to take a bath. She always wants to bathe with a ducky and won't go in without it. What's ducky, he said, but I couldn't deal with these complaints every time. What's her mother doing? To my surprise, he said she had gone on an overnight trip with a friend since this morning. Grandma, piecing together the conversation, informed us that a ducky referred to a duck toy located on the shelf in the dressing room. A trip, even though Grandma had just collapsed? Even if it was booked in advance, to go on a trip leaving behind a young daughter? It was clear that my sister-in-law was entirely unreliable when it came to childcare. Adam, I'm coming over tomorrow. I can't stand this anymore. She's the worst as a mother and as a wife. You need to get your act together. Hearing this, it seemed Adam finally made up his mind. Understood. She'll probably be back by after 7 p.m. He then hung up the phone. Good. I'm sure Ducky will be relieved too. I called my mom. I had updated her a few times about my sister-in-law, but it seemed she hadn't realized the extent of the situation. Adam really takes after your father. He can't stand up to women. My mom sighed, offering her full support once she understood the situation. The next day, upon her return from the trip, my Emily was met not only by her husband and me, her sister-in-law, and grandma, but also by my husband. Our mother, and her new husband, 6 of us in total. Grandma had put my niece to bed. What's with the crowd? Why are there people here I don't know? Who are you? She demanded, addressing my mother and her new husband. That's our mother, and next to her is her new husband. I said, oh, the woman who left her child to move out of this house? What do you want coming here all of a sudden? With that comment, I think she completely turned my mother against her. I called them. My mom's husband is a lawyer. I revealed, watching Emily's slight shock at the mention of a lawyer. Adam then decisively said, I want a divorce. We can't continue together. What? What are you talking about all of a sudden? What did I do? She screamed. Well, you did. You exploited our dear grandma. Going on a trip leaving your daughter behind when grandma collapsed. Dumping almost all household chores and childcare on grandma. I listed calmly to Emily. But I work, isn't it normal for the family to help out, she retorted. But you're not contributing your income to the household, right? You're using it for trips, clothes, and makeup. I pointed out, shocked when I first heard this from my brother. Why should I be lectured by you? I never wanted to get married or have children. I was forced into this by Adam after getting pregnant. She claimed, portraying herself as the victim. Then Adam spoke up. I hate to bring this up here, but you were the one who said it was a safe day, remember? I didn't really want to hear such personal details from my brother, but it seemed like the pregnancy was planned by her. And I heard you on the phone with your friend. Saying how at your age, people start nosing around. And it might be nice to get married and have a kid. Living in a house with a yard, the eldest son with no mother-in-law around. And the sister-in-law married off, seemed like a good deal to me. My usually quiet brother burst out. She turned red and yelled, what? Were you eavesdropping? It's not eavesdropping if you're speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. Even grandma heard. You don't care about anyone but yourself. So it doesn't matter who's listening, right? My brother countered. She refused to back down, even then. Humph. You have no proof. You can't just unilaterally decide to divorce me. I'm the mother, after all. You can't separate me from my child. After all the childcare she'd left to grandma, now she's playing the mother card? We have proof. I said, pulling out my phone. I had videos transferred from Adam showing her daily dismissive remarks and how she treated grandma like a slave. Adam may be timid, but he must have been seething with anger inside. When he started considering divorce, he thought of gathering evidence, hence the recordings and videos. With this much evidence, there's no way you'll get custody. If you refuse to agree to the divorce, we can go to mediation. But you don't stand a chance. Remember, we have a lawyer on our side. I said, glancing at my mother's husband who nodded silently in agreement. Then Adam promptly laid out the divorce papers on the table. The video showed Emily lounging on the sofa watching TV while grandma diligently took care of the great-grandchild. Changing her and attending to her needs. What the hell? What is this? Don't joke with me. Her face turned bright red as she angrily agreed to divorce, gathered her belongings in her room, and stormed out, saying, I'm relieved to be leaving this big, old house. I'll come back for my things later, don't you dare throw them away. After she left, the room fell into a serene silence as if a storm had passed. Thank you, everyone. I'll make some coffee. Grandma's words brought everyone back to reality. Let me do it, Grandma. Just sit down. I insisted, heading to the kitchen to boil water. It's been a while since I've been in this kitchen. My mother commented as she helped set out the snacks. Mom, thanks for bringing your husband. Having a lawyer with us made a huge difference. I expressed my gratitude. Yes, it was a good decision. She was quite a handful. I might have left this house, but I want you, your brother, and Grandma to be happy. I mean it, my mother said with a smile. As we all relaxed with coffee and snacks, Grandma made an important announcement. I've been thinking about rebuilding this house. Would you all consider living here then? When I left for marriage, Grandma's words, "You can always come back," seemed ominous, but now they were coming true in a different, happier form. About a year later, a magnificent two-family house was completed. It's a bit of an unconventional two-family house, with the first floor being fully accessible and serving as the living space for Grandma, my brother, and my niece. The second floor serves as the living space for my husband and me, along with our newborn child. By the way, the baby turned out to be a boy. In addition to the main kitchen, there's a mini kitchen on the second floor, making it convenient for preparing simple meals. There's also an airy sunroom that's perfect for letting the kids play, even on rainy days. With ample rooms, the house can accommodate more children in the future, and even if my brother remarries, there will be plenty of space for everyone. As a side note, my son was born with ease. I'd love to share this with my former sister-in-law, who used to boast about her childbirth experience. The cost of the rebuild was fully covered by Grandma. I wonder if it's really okay for us to live in such a fine house by sheer luck. My husband was initially embarrassed, but now he's completely settled in and gets along well with my grandmother, brother, and niece. As for my Emily, after the divorce, she moved back to her parents' cramped 2 LDK public housing, which couldn't accommodate her and her vast collection of clothes, shoes, and bags. Apparently, Emily had no choice but to rent a cheap studio apartment to live in. Despite being divorced, she still has the right to visitation with her daughter. However, after not attempting to see her daughter for over half a year, she seemingly learned about the house reconstruction and audaciously approached Adam for reconciliation. Truly, she is a person of endless selfishness and audacity. Of course, Adam coldly rejected her. It's surprising to learn Grandma was so wealthy, I reflected. If Emily had known, she would have treated Grandma differently. And she never agreed to the divorce. Your father and your late grandfather left us well provided. I was thinking of giving you and your brother a living inheritance. But after she came into our lives, I decided to keep our finances a secret. Grandma shared, making us shudder at the thought of what could have been if Emily had gotten her hands on everything. I want you and Adam to be happy, Grandma said, having endured so much yet astutely judging the true nature of Emily. But wanting to rebuild the house was my selfish wish. I wanted to spend my remaining years peacefully with my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Grandma admitted somewhat guiltily. Grandma, don't say that. They say life now lasts 100 years. We need you to stay healthy at least until the great-grandchildren get married. I insisted. Grandma smiled gently. That would be lovely. Watching Grandma, I hope to live a peaceful and happy life surrounded by grandchildren and great-grandchildren in the future too. People like Emily, who only think of themselves and lack compassion for others, might end up living as they please but leave this world in solitude. It's too late to have regrets when one grows old and finds themselves without anyone by their side. One day, I heard a company went bankrupt. The company's name sounded familiar, and I realized it was where Emily used to work. Her first misfortune arrived sooner than I expected. I don't know if she actually lost her job, but her future seems likely to be unstable, akin to a rolling stone. Recently, Adam seems to have started seeing someone new. Don't make the same mistake again, okay? I cautioned him. Responding to my warning, Adam quipped, I know. One strong-willed woman in the family is enough for me, prompting laughter from everyone. Even my son and niece, not understanding the context, joined in the laughter. When the adults are smiling, the children smile too.